Hey everybody, welcome to the MMA podcast. I'm Karyn Bryant.
What's up, guys? Alan Jouban here.
So Alan has to be on Skype today because this man is very, very busy now. Now that you're in full camp, you got a fight coming up with Gunnar Nelson. So where are we at? What's the status? How's the training?
Yeah, no, it's good. You're right, though. It makes such a difference going to training and coming straight home rather than going somewhere or doing the podcast somewhere. Like right now, I'm in the full swing of things. I'm about 3 weeks out.
Yeah.
And I'm just working on not only polishing up everything with camp, which is going amazing at this point, but I'm just staying healthy and working on my recovery time. So as soon as I'm done training, I'm getting home, I'm eating, I'm showering, I'm making sure my body's recovering. That way I have 110% to do that again this afternoon. But the camp is going spectacular. I literally am, and I'm almost checking off the list of things that I would need to do to beat Gunnar Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
Going again, having great karate guys like the H.E.A.T brothers sparring me on a day-to-day basis. Having a handful of black belts come in and working the ground game with me repeatedly. And then just strategizing with my coaches on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm.
So everything's good. I'm healthy. I'm confident. And I'm eager for this matchup.
Nice. So are we. And I was just saying here, before we got going, that'd be really fun to come down and film with you and the Machitas. So I want to try to work that out before it gets too crazy. And so that one is in London. Obviously, that's UFC in London, March 18th, right?
Correct.
Very nice, very nice. Well, today we were going to talk some about UFC 209. Obviously, that's coming up this weekend. We have the rematch of Stephen Thompson and the champ Tyron Woodley. And I think we've talked about this before. I personally saw it as either Tyron winning or a draw. I personally didn't see Stephen winning, although I thought he did great. That's how I saw it the first time. I can't remember if that's the same thing you were saying.
Yeah, no, being there in person, I definitely did not see Stephen winning. I thought being there in person that Tyron definitely probably won 3-2 in my eyes. Fun fight, but I had Tyron winning it. And then with a draw, I could see it happening, but not for Stephen. Yeah, definitely not in Stephen's eye. That Stephen won. Coming into the rematch, though, I had Stephen. I thought I picked Stephen to win going into the initial fight, and you had Tyron.
Yeah.
Going into the rematch, I've got to go with Tyron this time because of, him experiencing Stephen for the first time. I feel like he obtained a lot more knowledge than Stephen did over Tyron going into the second match.
I think we were talking about that before, and it's that whole kind of idea that Stephen is much trickier and much more complicated. So now that you're going in there for round 6, like you said, you have all that experience where Tyron is, and I mean this in a complimentary way, like a very fundamentally sound, great fighter at very traditional things. And so he's less difficult to, quote, figure out. He's incredibly dangerous, but there's less of a trickiness with Tyron. It's a very straightforward, here he comes. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. The only thing, as I said, I would put my money, if we're going to go and make bets right now, I would put my money on Tyron in this fight, in the rematch, just because of those reasons.
Yeah.
But having watched the countdown that came on TV the other night, the thing that I started thinking about after this, Karyn, was that Tyron Woodley has Sage Northcutt with him all the time. And Sage is a great kid, very respectful. And I noticed even like they were sharing an apartment with one another near Rufus Sport, and like they're making dinner, and Sage is like, "Hey champ, you want this? Hey champ," he's like, "Yeah, kid, yeah, come on, kid," you know. And it's like, I love the respectfulness, but it leads me to wonder. It leads me to wonder, like, if that is carried over, if that's how they see one another. You're the champ, you're the boss, you're paying for me to be here, you're paying for my living, my food, everything. I'm at your disposal. How are they sparring? You know what I mean? I know that they're just trying to keep it safe and not get injured, but at the same time, when you roll in jiu-jitsu with your master, per se, you never really try to take them out. Some people do, but the higher percentage of people, the respect factor weighs in on the way that you do technique. And I wonder if the respect factor is so prominent in the way that these two guys train that it's almost giving him a bad look. You know what I mean? It's a small thing. It's a small detail, but something that I picked up, that sometimes the respect factor could be so great that when I saw that, I feel like I would have told Sage Northcutt, all right, man, you can call me champ or whatever, but when we get in the gym, you try to take my head off. I want the real you. I don't want you giving me too much respect, and then I'm not getting the looks that I need.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because you wouldn't want to get a false sense of security because your training partner isn't going all the way. But I will say this, Sage has come around to Fox with Tyron when we were working on things, and from everything I've been told by Tyron, Sage is really going for it, and it's the kind of thing where I don't want to misphrasing, but basically, like, he really believes that people should give Sage more credit. Okay, so fine, he's been submitted in a couple of fights, and we all know that this kid has a lot to learn still, but that doesn't mean that he isn't already awesome at some stuff. And so Tyron, I think it goes both ways, that he has a great deal of respect for Sage and kind of thinks that a lot of people take him for granted or maybe underestimate how good this kid eventually is going to be, because of the talent that he already has now is fantastic. But I see what you're saying, and interesting point. I don't know, and I feel like this time too, before the first fight, I don't want to say there was bad blood, but there was a little bit of smack talk going around. Who signed the contract first? Who was ducking who or running from whom, and that whole bit. And I feel like now, you might have poked the bear a little even more with Tyron, and like now okay, fine. It was a close fight the first time, but he jokes about when Dana and people started walking toward him, like he was like, "No, you're going to take the belt out of my cold dead hands." And I feel like that's even been more elevated now, to the point where he's going to be fighting with even more intensity.
Yeah, and listen to Tyron speak. Tyron always makes very good points whenever he's debating against something. And one of the great points that he made when debating the last fight was that, saying, Stephen Thompson, how can you say that this fight was a draw when you never had me hurt? There was never any point in the fight where the referee was about to step in, or that Stephen had Tyron on Crazy Street, on wobbly legs, anything like that. Stephen did a great job of landing some shots, but he never really was in a position to put Tyron away. Well, Tyron was able to do that a couple times to Stephen. So he makes great points that, he was never able to hurt him, and Tyron was still figuring out Stephen. Right. And that's why I've got to go with Tyron in this rematch. Now that he has him a little bit more figured out, and he's submerged himself in this world of karate, living with Sage Northcutt for so long.
On the flip side, to argue the contrary, though, Stephen now knows he can take the worst that Tyron has to give, and go through it. So to me, that in a way, he's emboldened now, going, the punch that took out Robbie Lawler didn't take me out. I got dropped a little, but I stayed here. The guillotine attempt didn't work. And so if anything, I feel like he could go in there now feeling, he was already a confident person, but going in there feeling even more confident now, knowing that he took the best that Tyron had to give.
We're going to just debate on this episode, Karyn, because guess what I got for you?
I know.
On the contrary to that.
I know.
I don't know if that was the best Tyron Woodley shot. I think he took a tremendous shot very well. But, sometimes in fights, like, guys are throwing big shots, and you see the muscles and everything coming forward, but they're not actually putting that zing on it every time. When Tyron caught Robbie in the opening seconds, that was full power. Tyron Woodley. Right. But when he caught Stephen, was that not the fourth round?
It was fourth,
Fourth round. So he caught him with a tremendous shot, no lie. Yeah, you could see it wobbled the crap out of Stephen. But I don't think it was like a full power blow. I think he just walked into it, and that's why it crumbled him. Yeah. And I think on the guillotine, you know what? I'm not going to say anything about the guillotine. Stephen survived the guillotine, because when I watched the replay, it was under the chin. It was deep as hell. Yeah. And Stephen survived it. And I imagine he probably worked even harder on his defense. But I agree that it's going to give him a lot of confidence going into the fight, saying, and you heard in the fight, Stephen's dad said the same thing you just said. He said, Stephen's dad was saying in the corner, you took his best shot. Yeah. You could take it. He's not taking you out. Now finish him. And he fought better in the fifth round. Right. So Stephen's plan, starting round 1, the way that he ended round 5 in the previous fight, with confidence, knowing that he could take the fight. Tyron Woodley saying, no, you didn't take my best shot, son. That was the 4th round. And it was just a glancing blow. first round, I'm going to take you out with full power. You're not going to be able to handle that shot. So we'll see. It's up in the air.
It is. And I'm curious, too, how it starts. I like to call it round 6, but how much feeling out is there going to be? Because obviously now there won't need to be as much as there was before. But, I guess in both of their minds, Tyron will be like, okay, how similar are you to Sage and what we were doing and that kind of thing. But I have a feeling I don't think this one would go 5 rounds again necessarily. Like, I feel like, both sides of it have gotten a lot of information on how to get the fight done sooner.
So let's make this official. Who are you picking for this fight, Karyn Bryant?
T-Wood.
I already know before I asked you, but
I gotta go with the champ. I'm
going with Tyron as well.
Yeah, I will say this.
You think this is? Go ahead.
Yeah, champ. I say champ by knockout or Wonderboy by decision.
Interesting. Okay, you answered my question. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the champ. I'm gonna go with Tyron.
Yeah.
Does he knock Steven out or?
I don't know.
Man, this is a tough one. This is. Yeah, but you know what? I think that I think Tyron can finish him.
Yeah.
If he lands another powerful shot, if he doesn't put Steven out with the power, I think he gets on top of him. He stays on top of him, grounds and pounds him. Maybe he's full of blood. The ref steps in and waves it off as a TKO. But I do have Tyron winning, and I'm going to go with by stoppage.
Okay, yeah, and the tricky thing, too, is at first I was saying I didn't think it would go all the way, but the thing is with Steven, how he can win by decision. I mean, granted, he's got those incredible head kick knockouts. If Tyron gets to the point in the fight where he's tired enough and he gets flat-footed, then, that's when the vulture starts circling, and we've seen that Steven can do that, and it's ridiculous. And it's like you hate seeing it if he's fighting your friend, but it's like you love seeing that kick because it's spectacular. But I think, it could be a decision. But, it's that so tricky beating a champion by decision because that whole you really got to stick it to the champ thing. I don't know. Lastly, before we move on to some of the other fights, have you ever, sparred with either of those guys? Like, I was wondering, because obviously it's your weight class, if you could get a sense, if you have a sense of their power, their respective power.
You kind of broke up at the end, but I heard you asking if I'd sparred with either guy. I haven't had the chance to spar with either of them. I spent some time in Vegas with Steven, and he's such a nice guy, man.
He is.
After first meeting him, we had dinner, and he's telling me to come spend the weekend at his place, and we do all this training and ride four-wheelers and shoot guns, and I'm like, this guy's a riot. So he's a good guy, and that's why I really like Steven, and I go for him. I'm picking Tyron in this fight, just analyzing the fight, but I really like Steven. Unfortunately haven't been able to train with either of them yet, though. Right.
Yeah, and again, people always talk about this, but it's nothing personal when you're picking a fight, like you just said. It's about the breakdown. It's not personal. Both of them great guys, and obviously in the co-main event, you have a little more invested in this. You've been training some of the time with Tony Ferguson. Of course, he's taking on Khabib Nurmagomedov. This fight, I think, is going to be spectacular. I just can't wait. I love Cucuy. I love his style. I think it's fun. It's so flashy and unpredictable. But I also think that he, I just like that he's kind of on another level. Some people think he's a little crazy and stuff like that, but I like that he thinks out of the box. I kind of like that about him.
A lot of people probably think he's crazy. I agree with all that. You know what I love about this fight? It's like some people kind of, maybe Tony put this in my head, but some people think that maybe this should be the main event. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because of the build-up. Whereas Steven and Tyron, there might be a little hidden bad blood, but for the most part, these guys are very cordial. They're going on TV shows and together, and they spend an entire day or two together before, where you're not having Tony and Khabib ride in the same car together. No, it's not happening.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Not gonna happen. But what I love about it is these are one of those cards that, like, you go to use the restroom real quick after fight number 3, and you're like, oh shit, Khabib and Tony's fighting next. This isn't even the main event, and we get to watch this fight.
Right.
Like, that always happens, and I love that shit when I'm just like, oh shit, this is like the people's type of fight. Like the fighters fight. Like, we love to see these kind of fights before the bigger names come out. So I'm excited for this fight. Obviously, we both know Tony well.
Yeah.
I've trained with him numerous times, and you said it. He's a little bit out there, and he is out there. He seems a little bit out there. He is a little bit out there, You know, he wears the sunglasses inside and out. And it's because he sees his future being so bright, obviously. Right. But to that point, I really, truly believe that Tony has such a strong self-belief in himself, and it's genuine. It's not. It's organic. He's not just making it up as to sell the fight. Yeah. This man truly, having spent time with him in the gym, outside of the gym, 100% truly believes he's the best fighter in the world, and that's why he has that kind of persona. That's why he kind of has his chest poking out all the time. And that's what you're going to need to beat a guy like Khabib, because Khabib is going to be a whole nother beast. But Tony has the tools to do it, because Tony is amazing in his scramble. He's unorthodox, and again, he has this self-belief that he's going to make it happen. I can't wait to see what happens, though.
Well, and I'm glad you said that, because I've always gotten a good vibe from Tony. Like, I always got the vibe that he was being real with me in an interview, and that, you know, he is who he is. It's funny to me, though, the way some fans or some people perceive it. I mean, I guess maybe it's one of those things where if you don't like somebody, you see different things, or maybe you project different things. And people are like, oh, he's insecure, and he's just posturing, and this and that. And I guess I see that accusation, but I've never felt it. Like, I think he says what he really means, and that he believes what he says. And I don't know. I've always gotten that feeling from him.
There's like a great speech by Joe Rogan one time, and it might even be like an On It commercial, but he's saying something along the lines, I don't know why I'm quoting an On It
the great On It speech of 1970, whatever, no.
It stood out in my head, and he's saying something about, like, be the hero in your own movie. Be the hero in your own movie. And that's what I see when I look at Tony. Right. Tony he's in his own movie. He's in his own world. Right. He trains how he wants to train. He's like writing his own future as he goes, and that's why he's so confident. He's going to do what he wants to do, and he has that huge, tremendous self-belief in himself. And it could come across cocky, as you stated, to some people, or to some people it could just be he has strong belief and he's going to do whatever he has to do to make it happen. But either way, man, he's writing and starring and the hero in his own movie, and makes you want to tune in and watch his fights.
For sure. Well, and people should know that we put out a video of you guys training together up at Unbreakable, doing some ninja stuff, which is really fun. Yeah. But when I do think of the actual matchup, I mean, obviously Khabib is so good, and when he just put the hurt on Michael Johnson, and while he was fighting, he's sitting there screaming at Dana like, "Oh, watch out! Don't protect your boy!" You know, talking smack about Conor in the middle of handing out a beatdown. And I think Khabib is obviously tremendously talented, but I see actually Tony winning by like a Darce, like, you know, his favorite choke. Wow. I see something happening in a scramble where Tony gets the best of him. That's what I personally see. But, you know, the flip side of that, obviously Khabib, you know, once he's on top of you, you know, very hard to get rid of. This is a guy that, you know, up at AK gets so much wrestling with the greats in the game, Kane, DC, a lot of great guys. But I feel like it's much easier, not unlike the whole Tyron Steven thing. It's going to be way easier for Tony to get a Khabib than for Khabib to find a Tony to train with.
Yeah. I mean, basically, if you're fighting Khabib, it's like keep your hands up and then try to get off the ground, because that's totally. You just have somebody get top position on you every time, and you try to work your way to your feet. Right. To beat Khabib, you have to be tremendously tough. Yeah. Physically, but mentally. Right. He's going to wear you down. He's going to lay on top of you. This is a 5-round fight. If you got Khabib on top of you for 25 minutes, you need somebody strong like Tony Ferguson who says, I will never give up. He said in his interview, I loved it. He said, if you break my arm, I'm going to hit you with my broken arm. I'm not giving up. Right. I love that statement. That's just telling Khabib, look, man, even if you get me down, I'm going to scramble up. But even if you hold me down, I'm coming back the next round. I'm trying to take off your head. And that's how you have to beat Khabib. Tony has tremendous cardio. Let's not forget that his last win over Rafael dos Anjos, Mexico City, at altitude, 5-rounder, was breakdancing in the 5th round, not even breathing heavy. Yeah, no, he's great. He's in great shape all the time. I do think that's going to be an awesome fight. And, you know, I don't know. Yeah, well, whatever. I already said it. I think it's Tony by submission, but that's me. That's me. You're going Tony by... I got to go with Tony, my boy. I think he's going to get it done. And I agree. I could see Khabib winning by decision because I don't think Khabib has too many finishes. And a matter of fact, for as dominant as he's been, does he even have a post-fight bonus? I don't think he even has a single post-fight bonus.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
Because I thought I saw something somewhere that Tony has like 9
come on, he's Mr. Fight of the Night. Yeah.
Yeah. So Khabib, I see him by decision, or Tony by finishing, and I'm going with Tony. So I'm gonna say Tony is gonna finish Khabib, and I gotta agree with you, Karyn. I mean, Darce is his move, his go-to choice, and they're going to be in some scrambling type positions. So I'm gonna go with Darce as well.
Right. Or you never know too. He's a little lanky, throws up a triangle or something from the. You never know.
And he's got deceptive punching power because his technique doesn't look correct, but he still hits very hard.
Mm-hmm. Well, two guys that hit really, really like stupid hard. Mark Hunt and Alistair Overeem. That's another, quote unquote big fight on this one. Obviously some other good. Lando Venata's on this one. Tony's former victims there who showed up that time on short notice and put on a real great scrap. There are a lot of fun fights on this card, but I feel like that's the other one that people are going to really have their eyes on. Overeem. The last time we saw him, he was fought against Stipe Miocic and actually had Stipe in some trouble. Afterwards, there was that whole thing about whether or not he thought Stipe tapped, and there was that whole phantom tap thing. Obviously, we know Stipe ended up winning the fight, but Alistair had him in some hot spots there. And Mark Hunt, we know, was in the fight with Brock Lesnar at UFC 200. That turned into a no contest after Brock's positive test. Curious how you feel about this one. I always say, Mark Hunt fight, that one's not going the distance, and then he fights, Bigfoot Sullivan, the most ridiculous fight of all time. Mark has the ability to go long. And certainly the longer the fight goes, I feel like it benefits Mark more than Alistair. But I don't know. This to me could go either way.
Yeah, this is just a fun fight for the fans. You got two big heavyweight guys that are phenomenal strikers. I'm going to lean towards Alistair in this one, though, because Hunt is a striker. Mm-hmm. He does what he does great, which is throws that overhand and he lands it. Yeah. But Alistair is a high-level striker. He sees it all the time. He's the taller, rangier fighter. And Alistair, he's going to know how to move out of the way. He's going to know how to slide out of the way of those punches, counter back with those really good knees. If Alistair keeps hands up when Hunt comes in with the right overhand, throw those knees to the body, which he always gets very well. Mm-hmm. So I have Alistair keeping his distance and maybe even finishing Hunt. I really love Hunt, but I think I can see Alistair landing a big knee and finishing him because it's probably going to be a striker's battle. And this is a rematch, right? Didn't these guys fought in Pride?
A long time ago, yeah.
A long time ago. They were different fighters then, but I think Alistair even like armbarred or Kimura. I think he submit Mark Hunt back in the day. But Alistair is a whole nother beast when it comes to striking now. He's not as diverse as he used to be. The younger Alistair was a lot more diverse with the kicking and everything in the arsenal. But now Alistair is more of just like sliding out of punches, a couple kicks, but big knees. Right. But I have Alistair winning by, I'm going to go with KO in this one.
Nice. I was going to say we could get our fact checker to double check exactly what date it was they fought. The first time Mark and Alistair fought back in Pride. The thing, too, I feel like what you were just saying about how Alistair's game has changed a little. People have criticized him for having a glass chin. But, you know what? Screw you. Any heavyweight could take out any other heavyweight. But maybe he did learn to, and I believe he did, fight smarter, as he's gone along and not be as reckless, be smarter about how he approaches it because Mark Hunt broke Stefan Struve's jaw with a punch. So you do have to obviously look out for that. But I agree with you. The way their body types are, Mark could be eating knees all day long.
100% Overeem's style has completely changed. You see him fight now, and he puts his arms up. He kind of gauges the range with arms, and he just keeps them up. If anybody gets in his range too close to him, he kind of pushes them off, and he backs up. He's very kind of retreats a lot now, looking for the counter strike. He's more of a counter striker now than he used to be. So 100%, I think he fights smarter, maybe just because of age, or maybe like you hinted on, he suffered a couple knockouts.
Yeah, he did.
And it happens, you know. When I lost my last fight to Albertuminov, I changed my style, and now I'm a much smarter fighter. So it could have been some of his losses that triggered that in him, or just the father time.
So it was Dream 5.
It was in Dream 5.
July.
So all of you people typing, it was Dream 5, July what?
2008.
July 2008. And how did Overeem win?
He was Mark Hunt was submitted by
arm lock.
Just over a minute in the first round.
Yeah, over a minute of the first round. So you're right. Yeah, but yeah, it was Dream. It was post Pride, whatever. But so yeah, he's got that going in. I mean, and this is something, you know, I wanted to ask you about, because I'm not sure, you have never had a rematch in your fights, right? Even in Muay Thai?
I haven't had a rematch. No, not yet.
Because obviously with these two, they have history. With Tyron and Steven, they have history. And you do wonder how much, I mean, obviously with Steven and Tyron, nobody won. But you do wonder sometimes how much of an advantage that is, knowing you already beat this person, even though it was years ago. Or how much that motivates you, you know, with a chip on your shoulder, like, well, I'm going to even the score.
Yeah. I mean, like anything in fighting, you find your advantage, or you find the motivation, and then you go to that. One opponent might have a bigger advantage or bigger motivation, and that's what they had, and another opponent might have a smaller one. In Tyron's case, if we're talking about Tyron and Steven, Tyron in his head, he's like, look, I beat you up. I literally beat you up the last fight. You survived, and I saw the trickiness. That's what's going to motivate me. That's my advantage. And then on the opposite end, Steven's thing is he's saying, look, I've gotten better. I tasted your power. And he's the hungrier fighter in a sense, because he's still trying to get to the belt. You saw in the countdown, they were talking about, if we win this, the entire town is just going to just go nuts. And like everybody's been coming to the gym talking about it. So they still have that kind of like fire, where for Tyron, it's more of like a pride thing. Like, I'm the champion and you're not going to dethrone me. So they both have different drives, maybe for different reasons, but they both have an equal drive. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But again, I think just Tyron took a lot more away from the first fight than Steven did.
Yep. Well, you know, 209 is this weekend. I will be working the fights at Fox with Bryant Stan and Ken Flo. We do have a UFC tonight this week, so I know we're going to have the 4 guys on in the main and co-main event. I do know that people are going to want to pay attention. I believe it's going to be on Friday before the weigh-in show. There could be some real big news coming out. I can't.
Yes.
So what I was going to tell you, Alan, just between me and you, is that
okay.
But
and it cut out.
Some things I've heard that I believe are signed in 100%, and they're supposedly going to be making this announcement on Friday before the weigh-ins. So stay tuned, as people say. I wish I could say, but I'd be in trouble.
Okay, well, before we move on, just to state the facts. So Friday, at the weigh-in show?
Well, like before like in Vegas, before the weigh-ins, there may be some people showing up.
Be a big announcement
to announce some stuff.
And you mentioned something about a sign. Something was signed. So we're talking about a fight?
Yeah. And that's all I can say. But like I said, I've been told that this was happening and that it was a go. And that it would be announced on Friday there. So
I will tune in for
it. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. People will care. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah. So
then I will care.
So for you, like I said, we have the video out with you and Tony training that people should see. I'm trying to line up a couple of other interviews this week. Gastelum and Benil, looking forward to their fights in Brazil next week. But yeah, it's all good. So if people want to follow you, because you've been putting out some great stuff on your way toward the Gunnar fight, so where should people follow you on social media?
Yeah, follow me on social media, guys, at Alan Jouban. And then also, I'm pairing up with the UFC and build up to my fight and lead up to my fight. They're going to be they kind of launched a new thing. You'll see Stephen Thompson doing it. I think it's called UFC Diaries.
Okay,
So we're just basically taking videos on our phone or whatever, sending it to the UFC. They're kind of putting a package together, and they're going to be releasing it on the Instagram. So you'll see some stuff. I'm also going to try to get a little footage of us doing the MMA Heat podcast next week to kind of show guys
Yes.
when I'm not in the gym, some other little snippets of what we're doing in my life. So yeah,
Sure.
hopefully MMA Heat gets on this show. But check that out as well.
Awesome.
Look for like next week MMA Diaries on the UFC or I'll post it as well.
Perfect. So that's when they give you like the Procast camera, right? They give you a specific like UFC Procast phone. No,
They didn't give me
okay.
anything. They said if I send them about 3 to 5 videos a week,
cool.
then they'll edit it and they'll kind of throw it. I've only seen one that Steven did.
Okay.
It wasn't shot very well though. Like the screen was all narrow and everything.
Well, we can give them the footage of when USADA showed up here last time.
Yeah, we'll give them that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, so I'm on Instagram, KB Heat, on Twitter, Karyn Bryant, on YouTube, Karyn Bryant. We have MMA Heat everywhere as well. And also, Evie and I are going to be doing a new Trocasao because she's got a lot of dish on all the Brazilians and some news with Chris Cyborg and all this good stuff. So we'll be doing a Trocasao this week as well. But Alan, yeah, you're looking good. No black eyes right now. You're keeping your hands up. I like it.
I'll continue to do that.
It's good. Awesome. Well, great catching up with you. And yeah, like you said, we'll do it in person next week.
Cool. Take care, guys.
See ya.